Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
Hey, good. How you doing, Gina? It's good to
I'm,
see you.
I'm good. Welcome to Revitalized Womanhood. Is this is
Glad
this
to be
feel is this
here.
feel good to you? Not to be, does it feel a little more feminine over here? Not
It
so much.
does. Your
Uh,
studio looks great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I love
Quite
it.
a
These
quite a
girls.
difference in our studios, but that
Uh,
looks really nice.
yeah, these girls behind me, they are my motivation. They're my
I
inspiration.
love it.
I call it the
I
June
love it.
Cleaver effect.
The what did you say? It cut out a little bit. The
I call it
what?
the June Cleaver effect.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. It looks great.
I love that girl. Well, ladies, this is Ryan Michler. And like in my intro, I said he is the voice behind the podcast and the movement of Order of Man. It's a community to help men be the best thing they can possibly be, whether it's in their marriage, as fathers, in their communities, and business. And it's such an amazing mission. And it's so great of you to take this on because that is a big mission. And Ryan, we go back to your first
Yeah.
episode and you actually talk about that. You talk about the reasoning behind it. And because of your lack of that good father figure that that made you more determined to create this mission and spread the word.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it still pours over into my own life even now. Sometimes I worry that people believe that I have things more figured out than I actually do, or that I'm putting myself on some sort of pedestal I don't belong. But yeah, a lot of the things that I had happen in my childhood without my father being there, and introduction to alcohol and some of these things at an early age, uh, I struggle with a lot of things even now. And so I am trying to be cautious of saying that I have things figured out. Sure, some things, but I feel like I'm the biggest beneficiary and recipient of what we're doing. And it's helped me at times to remind me where I need to be and how I need to get back on the path and how to stand back up when I slip. And if it helps me, I know it's going to help other people. And it quite literally at this point has helped millions of men, which has been pretty phenomenal.
I think people that put themselves in that position as a leader, as a leadership role, kind of you're going to have that pushback from people maybe making you feel like you know it all or you're telling them something to do like your answer is the right answer, but really the people that the message is getting through to, I think, are the right people because they appreciate that message and they appreciate where it comes from, because I know you personally and I know that message comes from a good place and I know that message comes from you actually want these men to be the best they can be in their lives.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want for all of us, myself included. I want to be the best man that I can be. I know I foul up. I know a lot of other guys do because I get messages every day that talk about how they have done that. It's interesting because in some ways, men will send me messages and ask for guidance or direction on a specific aspect of their life, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm trying to figure that out for myself.
Back.
But there's also an added level of pressure, that comes when you put yourself in that position that you believe that you have to have it all figured out. And you start to buy into that lie that you're supposed to be perfect and you're supposed to have everything dialed in. And I think that is at the heart of what we're doing with Order of Man and even Revitalized Womanhood, is that we need to be talking about these things. I think it's probably a greater issue for men than it is for women. That is to talk about the things that you're dealing with and struggling with, and communicating those things in a way that resonates with men, not acting like women necessarily in that. Not that it's wrong, but it doesn't really serve men that well. So yeah, we're trying to create this community that helps guys flesh out these ideas and have these conversations and do the things they need to do. And I think that's what you're trying to do as well with Revitalized Womanhood.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Women have it a lot easier for I could walk I feel like comfortable to walk up to even strangers and just, "Oh, this is what I have going on." Oh, and with guys, you'd be like, "Okay, dude.
Yeah, it'd be weird.
Met you."
Yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah. It's more like, what about the game? What about the weather? What about the sports team? And I, I don't really care about those conversations personally. It's small talk's a weird thing for me. I'm like, why are we talking about this? What is the point of this? So maybe that's just my personality, but I think more men need to talk about it, and women too need to have an outlet, a structured outlet, an organization that's encouraging and fostering and providing tools and resources to allow women to do that in the most constructive and positive ways.
Absolutely. I'm hearing from different people just being able to talk about this now because it's come to fruition. And so I'm talking about it more. And people that I never even would consider needing friendship or needing help creating community, like they don't have it. They just don't. They whether it's like say a woman that's got all of these employees, they're not her friends, but she's surrounded by these people all the time, but she doesn't
Right.
know how to make those friendships. There's it's so interesting when you get into it and get to talk to people about this. Well, tell me because I have so many people saying, "What is revitalized womanhood?" Rick has so many people saying, "What is revitalized womanhood?" And I'm doing my best to explain it, but it's so new that it's like in my brain and I'm trying to just like this is what it is. Can't you see what's in my brain? And Order of Man, I think you say it, you explain it so well that I would love for you to explain what Order of Man is so that these women understand it. And also, any men in their lives, I think they all need it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that because I listened to your introduction for the podcast the other night, and I thought, "Dang, that's better than I could have ever said it." So it was really really good. It was
Oh,
very
that's
powerful.
so good. Made my
So I think you're discounting yourself a little bit
Oh,
with
I
that
think we do that
because
anyway. I think
of course, and it's good to be humble.
yeah,
But it's also good to be proud of yourself, and you should be proud. What you said there and what you've been able to create in just a short amount of time is pretty incredible, and I know it's only going up from here, so I congratulate you. To answer your question, Order of Man is a community. It's an organization where we attempt to provide tools, resources, conversations through our podcast, guidance, direction, that will help us all live a high standard. And all of us fall short from time to time. We all slip up and mess up. And when that happens, I want myself and other people to have the tools at their disposal to be able to stand back up, to dust themselves off, to have a framework and a path for getting back on track, which is what I think all men want to do. And we're trying to grease the grooves, so to speak, and allow them to be in a place where they can communicate with each other to some degree. We can hold each other's feet to the fire. We can give each other a kick in the pants if that's needed. I think that's probably more so than it is with women, but we might get a little bit more forceful or aggressive or assertive in nature than our female counterparts. But these are all places where guys can go to be able to communicate about these things and, more importantly, be held to account to improving their lives and the lives of the people around them.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right, women, it's sometimes you have to balance. I think my balance is going to be maybe not yeah, definitely coming off like I'm telling people what to do, but maybe even you don't want to walk into the bitchy element of anything. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
everything can kind of get into that with women. With men, I think you can be like, dude, you're being a dick. But with
Right.
women, I'd be like, you're being a beach. And they'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, so
I think generally men are able to confront a little bit more assertively, maybe even aggressively, without the risk of alienating or hurting feelings, and we can let it slide off a little bit easier for the most part than women. Yeah, I have seen that where uh, there seems to be some animosity and contention among women if somebody has something figured out or they're doing better than another woman or they're perceived as knowing more or putting themselves above women. It gets very interesting from my perspective anyways.
it's true. Rick, I gave him those pictures. I sent him those, whatever. Which one of these should I pick for my podcast cover? And he legit picked the one that was like resting bitch face. And I'm like,
I was wondering if that's what you were going to say.
yeah,
I don't think I've seen the pictures,
I
so I don't know what they look
I'm
like.
like, yeah, I can't use that one. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, if I want to tell the world that I'm a bee, then yeah, let's use that.
That's the winner.
Let's
Why
close
did he
the
pick that
door.
one?
I
What did he like about that?
maybe for him it was sultry, or maybe it was just he likes that look on me. I
Yeah.
who knows
Yeah.
what's going through his
No,
brain. I cannot
you
wait
want
to have a
something
conversation with Rick on here. That's gonna be so entertaining.
yeah, you want something warm, you want something
Friendly.
inviting, you want something friendly, something that encourages women to
wanna
feel
talk.
good about being connected to you, and yeah, not a B for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I would appreciate it if you don't mind because I okay, let me start by saying this. I talked to Chad this morning for a little bit of detail, and do
Mm.
you even know how many actual full-on episodes you have done? I mean, not even
It's
just
probably right around
I got
900
down
maybe.
yes, so I got down to it. So you have done 395 interview episodes
Okay.
and
Yep.
approximately 280 of the Ask Me Anythings and
Okay.
approximately 330 of the Friday field notes. And this has
Isn't
been
that
in
wild?
that's crazy. In what, 7 years?
Just a little bit over, but yeah, right at 7 years. Yeah.
Years. That's amazing. I can't believe it. I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, wow, this is my first episode. Second, technically, but
With your introduction.
yes,
Look, but here's the thing. I think we need to be careful though of saying it's amazing because it really isn't. It really isn't amazing. And let me explain what I
yeah,
mean.
explain.
And I'm not trying to do like the humble brag or anything. Like I'm not trying to do that. Or dismiss it. I am grateful that people are appreciative of what we put out there. But when we make these types of things amazing and incredible, I think what we do is we tend to say, well, that's not for me, that's for other people. And it really isn't that amazing. All I've done is a podcast per week. That's how I look at it
Yeah,
is I
gotten
do a
to have
podcast per week.
conversations though.
Say it again.
Yeah, and having some great conversations.
Right. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And yes, I've gotten better at the skill. I've managed to attract a lot of individuals, men who are interested in what we're doing. We've obviously managed to serve millions of men in the process. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But the act alone is not. It's just committing to doing something and then doing it. And that shouldn't be amazing, but it is amazing in today's society.
But then I'll say that, okay, so committing to something and being on a structure that it and we've said this behind your back. Like we've said, Ryan, if he is nothing else, man, he is the commitment, that is something like
That
you
is
said, it's
a
sad that it's praiseworthy because it should be expected. But now it is praiseworthy. People just kind of get in and they're like, I don't really like this. I'm not gonna do it anymore. They're not committed to.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is a good point. My wife and I were talking about that just over the past couple of days, and there's a lot of character flaws that I have that I'm trying to work on and improve, just like we all do. But I will say, because I am proud of this, that a few characteristics about me that I do believe are true is that I'm a loyal person. If I have a friend in need or a mission that's important to me, I'm going to stand by that person. I'm going to stand by that mission and that movement. And then I am very, very dedicated and committed. And when I move with a purpose. It's very difficult to move me or deter me or bump me off that path. And I will go relentlessly until it is done, whatever it is. But those are some characteristics that I am proud about, and I have been able to refine and hone throughout the years, in spite of the other character flaws that I do possess.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind oh, sorry about that. If you don't mind, can you talk to the women here about your first episode talking about kind of where you came from, your background? Because I think it's so interesting where it is a podcast for men, but
Hmm.
I went to it because we were friends and I'm like, "Oh, well, this is gonna be interesting." But it's every episode I listen to and I'm honestly like, "Wow, that resonated with me. Wow." And obviously I haven't listened to all of them, and so I'm sure you have ones that are just super for men, whatever. But I went clear to the back. I think it was like 2015 or something. I went clear
Yeah,
and
yeah,
started with episode 1 and it was so funny. Like each next one I was like, "Oh wow, that really resonated with me. Oh wow, that really resonated with me." And so
that's funny.
I hope that I could have a little crossover there too. I hope it's interesting for both, but I think the things that you were talking about in those first ones were just generally as good human beings, but sorry, I digress.
Most of it is.
Yeah, I mean, just be a good person. Like, let's just all be better at the people that we know we can be or hope to be, not know we can be.
Yeah, I think we should know that we can get better. I think we should know that and have faith or look at somebody else and be inspired by somebody and say, I could be like that. Like, what's to keep you from being like that? Now, I may never be Michael Jordan or something, but I can be like those people,
Yeah.
that's possible.
And that's what you and I are here for. But sorry, I digress. I would love for you to talk to me about your background and what motivated Order of Man.
Yeah, I really started it as a selfish pursuit. I started it so that I could have conversations with men that I was motivated and inspired by and that I wanted to be like, to our point earlier. And I was doing another podcast called Wealth Anatomy, which was a podcast geared towards helping medical professionals with their financial services. And yeah, so I started that podcast and realized I love the medium of podcasting, but I didn't want to have that same continued conversation. So I started thinking about how I could have conversations with men because that's what I needed as a husband, as a father to my children, as somebody who wanted to run a successful financial planning practice. And when I did my first episode, it immediately blew up. It took off, which is a testament to the fact that men are wanting to have these conversations, but they don't have an outlet for it. It's very interesting. We're supposed to be stoic and not express our feelings and talk about these. And I've actually talked with quite a few men. These are close friends and people in my inner circle about some sensitive issues over the past several weeks in my life and in their lives. And it's amazing. We're all going through the same thing. Like we're all struggling with the same things. And I had no idea. I was on the phone with a good friend of mine and I told him what some of my personal struggles were and what I was working through. And he shared with me what he was working through. Well, we've been friends for 7 years. He's going through the same exact thing that I'm going through. And I had no idea, zero idea. And he had zero idea what I was going through. And it was a really great conversation yesterday because we were actually able to talk about it in a masculine way, right? Not sitting around singing kumbaya to each other or whatever, but in a masculine way. And I'm realizing more and more as I have these conversations that it gives permission, as if they needed it, to other men to be able to have the same types of conversations with guys in their corner and checking on the people that they interact with and having people that check in on them. So I reached out to a friend because I felt compelled to do so, and just last couple of days, and he expressed some things that he was dealing with, and I should have reached out sooner. I don't know why I didn't. I've had people in my life who have committed suicide, or contemplated suicide, and man, all it would take is for me to reach out, pick up the phone, pick up, drive to their house, like do whatever, go pick them up for a bite or some, or to the game. And yet we just don't do it. We just isolate ourselves and live on these islands and think that we're the only ones who are dealing with difficult circumstances in life. And the reality is that every single person that you ever encounter is going through something right now to varying degrees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's because we all think, especially with this new social media, this is new for our generation since it came out to be posting all of these things that are like, look at me, and all the good and all the good, and this is my life. And you become, I think the compare game becomes so overwhelming for so many people that it's like, I'm not going to talk about anything bad that's going on in my life. I'm going to hide that because I want to look like I'm having the best life like all of these other people. Like I got a message, my first message from one of my posts that it was the one about um girls being able to go on girls trips, but also encourage the men to go on men's trips. They need to do that. And
Right.
and this is from a family who's spent so much time of our lives traveling together, like always together. And we know, maybe then that's why we know better than that, because as soon as we get home from one of those trips, I'm like, bye, you go hunting or you go do something. I'm going to go meet the girls. We need some separation. We need to be ourselves. And this girl reached out to me and she said, and I would have had no idea that she was having problems. And she said that was, we're getting a divorce. And that was one of our biggest fights, was that I would say, you need to go make these relationships with other men and you need to bond. And he took it as, you want to get rid of me? What are you just trying? You don't want to be with me? And I
Mm.
like, that is heartbreaking. I'm so sorry for that this is happening, but also that there wasn't a community of men or a community for women to talk to other people about, saying, this is so normal. This is normal. This is what we need. It's healthy.
Yeah, and it's a good outlet. I think a lot of the times we tend to rely on our spouses, and that can be exhausting. You know, a man can be exhausting to his wife. He's again, I'm speaking in generalities, but he's probably going to be more assertive, and he's probably going to try to exert himself more so than maybe his wife would generally. And that can be exhausting for a woman. And a woman, you know, I think again, generally, is going to follow that lead maybe to some degree at her own expense and not be willing to take care of herself. So yeah, it creates a very interesting, challenging dynamic. And then all of a sudden, both partners feel like they're fighting against each other or they're at odds with each other. And there's a lot of conflict, obviously, in a relationship like that.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think it's good for your kids to see it. I think it's good for your kids to see that mommy's going out and having her time because your identities, especially for women, I mean, men have them too, but for women, our identities are where we are in our lives. So my identity becomes a wife, my identity becomes a mother, my identity becomes, I lose myself. I have the funniest story. I'm sorry, I'll just take 2 seconds to say this, but Castle was like 2 or 3, and we were sitting on the floor, and I had just had Hayes, so he was 3. And he says, "Mom, what did you used to be?" And I said, "A cute girl." And he wiped his nose up my leg and said, "Well, now you're just a tissue."
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, "Yep,
Thank you.
that was so perfectly said that I'm just a tissue."
Yeah,
So,
it's gotta be hard. I mean, I obviously I'm not in that position, but yeah, that's gotta be a challenge knowing. I mean, as a woman, you've got to take so much pride and joy and satisfaction in having children and raising them, and then being having boogers wiped on your leg. It's got to
oh,
be a slap in the face. I,
there is
I I don't
a
know what that would
serious
be
amount
like,
of
quite honestly.
metamorphism, constant change. We turn into,
Yeah.
like, at least 8 different butterflies in our lives.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say every day.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The amount of times that you need to adjust and pivot and switch from mom to wife to cook to chauffeur to scheduler to planner to logistics coordinator and to maid and all these other things. It's like, man,
You wear a lot of hats.
that's a tall order. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So, but
And men, I think, generally have the luxury of, hey, we go out and we provide financially,
Mhm.
and then we come home and, hopefully we can play with our children and be engaged with them, and we can have dinner with our wife, and we can spend a little time with her alone after the kids go to bed, and that's kind of it, That's not to diminish what we do
No,
or what we should be doing. we
yeah,
we should be more than just the AT. You talk about you being the tissue. I think sometimes guys believe that they're just an ATM machine. Like here, oh, you just need my credit card. Here you go. And that's a challenge I think a lot of guys deal with, and they're
been
not
talking
getting
to
what
my
they need
husband,
either.
Ryan.
I mean, we talk. I don't know if we talked about that though necessarily.
That's that's exactly what he would define himself as.
I mean, it is. It's weird because it's weird as a man to say, but we're all thinking it. That can be hurtful.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because we want connection too. Like
yeah, it's
we
like
want to be connected. We want to be relied upon. We want to be trusted. We do some things to undermine and diminish that trust and respect, sure.
yeah.
But ultimately that is what we crave above and beyond. Is there enough money in the bank account to buy this thing? So it is a challenge on both sides.
We could talk about this for hours. We could talk that is why everyone, m Order of Man, revitalize womanhood. There is such a need for both. There's a need for
There
both.
is.
You know what I'm really excited about, if I can slip this out there, is a live event when we finally get to do them together.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good well, it'd be good for me, it'd be good for you, it'd be good for the guys like working through some of these issues. Again, it's so hard because it's like who am I? Who am I to do that?
That's when I think it's so fun is we get together and it shows, guess what? You are not the only ones going through this. Like, I bet if I sat down and said all of the things, and not just about me and Rick, but if I sat down and said the same things about having kids with women or whatever, we would all be able to commiserate. But in just for the need of an idea, husband and wife, if I sat down and started saying something that was going on with us, I guarantee every person in that event that is a husband and wife would go, "Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Oh, of course. Of
Every
course.
single one of them."
Again, we're all dealing with the same things.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, can I talk just a little bit about I want to do a little shout out for Brecken here, man in the making, because I am a boy
Yeah.
mom. I am a boy mama and I am raising boys. And when I heard, I just literally got chills. When I heard that you guys were doing this, I was like, this is so perfect for me as a boy mom. There's a lot of things that I don't understand and I'm just kind of like figuring it out as I go. I know how to be a girl. I don't know how to be a boy. I know how to love them to death. I know how to
Mhm.
smother them to death. But luckily, I have Rick and a good father figure and a male figure for them and many male figures for them to look up to. But there are things that kids don't talk to their parents about, unfortunately. I mean, there's so much. And so for Brecken to create this, anyway, just tell them a little bit about that, about the mission there and
Yeah, so obviously, my oldest son, his name is Brecken. He's been basically my clone. He's followed me around in a lot of ways, and I don't say this as hyperbole or lightly. That he literally saved my life, and uh, because of some changes that I made about 13 years ago in my life. He didn't pull me out of the river or anything, but when he was one, he really caused me to reflect and think about the way I was living my life and make some changes, which I did. And so he's been attached in my hip ever since. And whatever dad does, he wants to do, and he wants to be involved with and get involved with. And I love it. I'm so grateful for it. So we decided that we would start a podcast called Man in the Making. It's his podcast, but as of right now, it's a father-son podcast that we do together, and we talk about fun issues like him starting football this week to issues about girls or pornography or drug abuse or alcohol abuse or any number of things that a young man is inevitably at an earlier age more and more presented with in his life. And how do we hash through this? How do we deal with this? How do we talk about it? Because there's a lot of guys who want to have these conversations with their boys and they just don't know how to do it. So we've done, I think yesterday we recorded episode 23, I believe. And man, we've had such a great time. There's been times where we haven't been able to record because I've been busy or he has, but we're really trying to be consistent with it. And not only is it good to be able to have these conversations, but he's learning a valuable marketable skill that he is currently turning into a business. He bought shirts. In fact, he bought the domain maninthemaking.com, and it was $4,000 to buy that domain. And he bought it with his own money. I didn't buy it. He bought it. It was $4,000, and he transferred the money from his account to my account, and he bought shirts with the help of a sponsor, and then he bought some extra shirts from his own money, and he's selling those shirts now. So like he's already turning this into a business.
yeah.
And so outside of even just the valuable conversations, the fact that he's learning a marketable skill is pretty cool. It's
It's
pretty cool.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I know Brecken and he is amazing. I was listening to your conversation with Pete yesterday and talking
Uh-huh.
about how proud people will come up to you and say, "Wow, what a good kid you have there." And you're like, "Well, I'd like to know, well, I'm curious why. What do you mean?" And you said a firm handshake, looks me in the eye and talks, that is so unfortunate that that's a big deal. That is a
Right.
normal, it's like, what's that? Your kid's supposed to graduate high school, it's you're supposed to do that. Teach your kids to do that. That is, if nothing else, the basic human interaction that put the phone down. Phones
Right.
have made it so kids don't know how to have a conversation. They don't know how to communicate. And, nothing worse than when you meet a kid and they won't even look at you and the mom has to talk for them and order for them. Your kids all order their own food at restaurants. I've noticed that.
Yep.
That's amazing.
And we tell them, if it's at the restaurant or even Subway, and they're like, I don't want to. I'm like, then you don't get to eat. Like, if you want to eat, and I don't say it mean,
Suffer in
maybe,
silence.
maybe I have, but I'm like, if you don't want to eat, or if you don't want to tell people what you're after, what you would like in a respectful way, then you just don't eat. And they're like, Okay. And then they order, but they know now. It's not even a
It's
question. They
a
all,
natural
because it's,
normal. A
that's
natural
it.
normal. I just did a post about that. It's a natural normal. What is it that you're raising them to feel is natural? Because when they get into a situation where that's not happening, they will feel so awkward because it's not their natural normal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. So we're trying to do that to varying degrees and varying success, but it seems to be working to some level.
Yep. Yep. I hope you get one that's just so naughty and just gives you.
One of our kids,
Yep. Yep. I
oh,
hope
we
one
do.
of
Our
them.
youngest is
I know.
that
I know
one.
who it is. I know who it is.
Yeah,
I
that
know his naughty,
we have one.
and it's the best. It's the best kind.
He's a sweet kid. He's a wild kid. He's given me more gray hairs than any of my other kids combined, but I'm actually grateful for it in
Yeah.
a strange way.
Yes. Yeah, because that's the kind of personalities. It's like haze. It's those are the kind of personalities that make you so crazy and cringy. But then you're like, gosh, he's gonna be something really cool when he grows up. Like he's not gonna be
Yeah,
just like a
as
normal
long as he
kid
survives.
yeah, yeah,
That's we got
exactly.
to get him to survive to that age first. That's the low hanging fruit, and then we can worry about, okay, now what are you going to do with this life that you have managed to keep for this long?
Rick wanted to buy a helmet for Locke so he could just walk around with a helmet on. I'm like, oh my heck, this kid, he's gonna something.
Yeah,
His head, he hits his head on everything. He's got the biggest head. He just runs it into everything. And it's like, oh man, you're not going to know math, kid.
that's
Well,
funny.
let me talk a little bit about your books because you've got
Yes,
Sovereignty that
books.
came out in 2018. And now you've been
Mm-hmm.
working tirelessly on the new one. It's called the Masculinity Manifesto. It's going to be available September 27th. That sound
That's
right?
right. Yep.
So, is there any sneak peeks or any little snippets you can tell us about?
Uh, really, the whole premise of the book is to help us as men develop authority, influence, credibility with other people inside the walls of our home and even outside. And sometimes I feel like a hypocrite almost. I'm like, man, I'm not doing this. I was reading it the other day because I was doing the Audible version, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this chapter is written for me. And then I remember, oh yeah, I wrote it. and and it's weird that I would need the reminders myself to do better, to be better. And so, I break it down into some leadership principles, some masculine leadership principles. And then what we really do is we explore 8 different characteristics that are inherently masculine. Not that women can't possess them, but inherently masculine, such as vigilance, violence, strength, stoicism, that I think society, competitiveness, dominance, that society would generally consider negative or increasingly quote unquote toxic, and how we can actually harness those masculine characteristics into productive outcomes for the people that we care about and the people we're called to serve. So it's a very interesting read. It's not your typical leadership type book. It's something very different, geared towards men to help all of us, myself included, just live a better, more fulfilled life of service to other people.
I love that you said that because as soon as you said violence, I was like, but you know what? I know what you mean with this is the true heroes have to have that in them to be able to protect us. You have
Of
to.
course.
You can't be a little wussy boy and be expected to go out and fight in a war or, you can't
Or
or
even like
stand up in a theater and protect all these people from an active shooter. You have to
right,
have that violence in you and use it in a positive way. And that is the definition of a true hero, the way that they.
right. Or even as a woman, if you're walking down the road or coming out of a restaurant in the evening and you're assaulted and somebody's trying to force themselves upon you, well, me as a bystander need to be capable of administering righteous violence against somebody who's willing to do it to you.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not capable of that, I'm not prepared for that mentally, emotionally, physically, then, you know, what kind of a man am I? I'm what am
Yeah.
I going to do? Watch that happen and stand by because I'm incapable of dealing with it? That's not acceptable.
We see a lot of that going on right now, and I can't even believe half the time, I mean, all the time, every time I'm like, "What? Why why is nobody doing anything? What is going
Right.
on? What is going through your head? What is going through your," and not only not doing anything, the ones where people are filming it,
Recording it. Yeah.
recording it, like, yeah, it's heartbreaking, it's baffling, it's heartbreaking. We can't even go into any of that because that would be a whole 'nother episode and a whole 'nother blocket of 10 hours of time because there's
It's
so
a
much
lot.
content there.
Yeah, there's a lot to
So,
unpack.
Ryan, where can we tell these men to find you?
Well, you're listening to your podcast, Revitalize Womanhood. So I would say check out the Order of Man podcast is a great place to go. So if you're a lady and you're listening to this one and you want to listen to what we're about or send your husband in the right direction, then Order of Man podcast or orderofman.com is our headquarters. And you can find all our social media accounts and all that kind of stuff, including book information for the Masculinity Manifesto on the site.
Yes, I love it. And ladies, I will tell you, I love Ryan's apparel and I wear it. I think it's really
Do
cute.
you really? You're not allowed to wear it.
I do. I wear it. I love it. I have a
I'm
beanie.
gonna tell Rick if you're wearing it, you tell her to take that off and put something else on
Oh,
immediately.
well, soon I'll be able to have just revitalized womanhood.
There you go.
I
There you
won't
go.
need to wear yours anymore.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with this. And of course, I believe in you. I know you're going to do great. I wouldn't have wanted to be involved if I didn't believe that you could do great things and you could lead this movement in a positive and incredible direction for the women you're going to be working with. It's pretty exciting.
I really appreciate that. That just gave me all the feels because
Good.
it's been a lot. It's been a lot of background noise that I'm just trying to sift through to get to the good stuff, to the meat.
Well, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. You're taking action. And yes, I know that you've been overwhelmed with the amount of things that I've given you and the things that you've realized need to be done, but you're doing it in the right way. And the biggest thing is that you're getting it done and like kind of like building the plane as it, crashes, right? Like you're
Yes,
building it
yes, yes.
right now
Go faster,
and
faster.
you will, it'll come. No question about it.
Awesome. I appreciate you being here, Ryan. I thank you for
You bet.
taking
I
the
appreciate the
time.
opportunity.
It's
Yes,
been really fun
absolutely. Happy to do it.
conversation with you.
Thank you.